How should I breathe during strength work? Such a good question. So breathing is so important because breathing creates internal pressure. It's called intra-abdominal pressure, which is what ultimately creates stability for your movements and therefore keeps you very safe. But that said, breathing correctly is ultimately going to lead to a lot more safety, stability, and better performance than breathing incorrectly. So the biggest thing you want to think about is you want to be full of air and therefore subsequently braced when you're in positions that could be vulnerable or are the more vulnerable positions of that movement. Meaning, when I lower into the bottom of a back squat, I'm fine standing up when I first unrack the bar, and I'm fine standing up once I finish my squat. But that change of direction at the bottom, there's more moving on, that's the more vulnerable position. Same thing on a deadlift. The vulnerable position is not once you're standing up with the weight, it's at the very bottom when you go to first pull that off the ground. So if you can think of being full of air in those positions, that's going to be optimal and safest. So you want to largely think about inhaling as you descend into the bottom of a position, maintaining a breath hold through the change of direction, and then exhaling as you're standing. Now, with that, I want to think with each breath, I want to breathe into my belly, into my ribs laterally, and into my lower back. So I'm trying to fill as if I have like a balloon that's sitting in my belly. I want to fill as low as possible as opposed to elevating my shoulders. So I'm thinking like ultimately that's going to create, that low belly breath is going to create stability for my spine. And the easiest way to think that resonates with me is if I were to take a mason jar and put a straw in it, I can move that straw around by moving that jar, and it's kind of all over the place. That's ultimately, the straw in this example is going to be your spine, and the jar is going to be your whole torso. Now, if I fill that with rice, so the mason jar is full of rice, and then I put the straw in, the straw still has the ability to move a little bit, for sure, but there's going to be some resistance, there's going to be some stability to it. So that rice in this example would be your breath. So if you take a breath, you've now created that pressure, that internal pressure, that is going to create the stability as you go to move heavier weights on a squat, on a bench press, in any movement whatsoever. And if you can think, you want to inhale, filling that internal pressure, filling rice into the system, that's going to create your stability as you move through the vulnerable part or the change of direction. And then you can exhale once you're back into an easier part of that range of motion.